We're not doing this just for some tech accomplishment, but we're doing it to solve the challenges of people and planet.
The thing that had been the AI test forever just went whooshing by.
We've increased the energy efficiency of computing by 10,000 times.
Today, we're launching GPT-5.
Gemini 3.
Llama 4.
Claude. Grok 4.
It's the worst it'll ever be.
All right, welcome
morning.
to Forward, the Future Live. I got our old name in there. It is Friday, April 3rd, 2026. I'm Matt Berman.
And I'm Nick Wentz.
And we have another great show for you today. We have three guests: Ben Pouladian, CEO of BEP Holdings. We have Wayne Nelms, CTO of Ornn, and Jayden Clark coming back to the show again, host of the MOTS podcast. But first, Nick, let's get into some of the biggest stories this week, and there were a bunch.
Yeah, by the way, Jayden's becoming a regular on the show.
A fixture, some might say.
Third appearance.
That's right. Yeah.
All right,
Excited to talk to him.
Yeah. So let's go over some releases. There were quite a few releases, model releases, product updates. We don't have to spend a lot of time on these, but I want to make sure we cover them. So first and foremost, Google released Gemma 4, and now this came out with a family of open weight models. I think it was the E2B, E4B, 26B, and then there was like a 31B dense, I believe.
Yep.
And so all four of these are now available on Hugging Face, Kaggle, Ollama. And this is very interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot to talk about here, but maybe the most interesting is the license that they use to release these models. Really no restrictions on commercial use.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to like here. First of all, I said it in a video where I covered this. Shout out to Google. They continue to push the frontier of open source, so I'm very happy about that. These are great models, and I think it wasn't even appreciated as much as it should be. These are phenomenal open source, open weights models, commercially viable, commercially permissive, and they're also relatively small. But for their size, they're incredibly good, right? So I think the biggest one was a 30 billion parameter model, or 31, something around there. And it performs as well. I think it might actually beat the Qwen 3.5 model that's at like 300 billion parameters. And so you have this incredible model, and it can actually run on the edge. And they also released the smaller versions, E2E2, something like that, E2E. Those are meant for phones. I mean, these are really incredible models, and I've been saying it for a while. Open source is getting better, faster, smaller. And we're going to have this hybrid architecture in the future in which like coding and frontier math, frontier science, new knowledge discovery, that's all done with hosted frontier models. But there's just so much else that can be done on the edge. So many use cases for the average person can be done completely on edge devices, and there are a number of benefits there.
Yeah, actually, so let's pause there for a second. As we move to the edge, is that the limiter right now in more adoption, do you think? Or one of the limiters? You think once we really get these frontier models, high performing, low cost models on the edge, like on the phone, then suddenly the folks who maybe are sitting on the sidelines come off the sidelines and start using these things?
I think there's a few things to think about there. No, I don't actually think being local is the thing preventing most people from using it. I think it's actually understanding what they are good at. The frontier in capability has progressed so far in such a short period of time. Most people just literally don't know what they're capable of. They think ChatGPT, question and answer. Basically, maybe it's a supplement, possibly a replacement for Google search, but not much else than that. And I
Right.
think it'll take a company like Apple or like Google to build it deeply into the products and services that consumers use and make it so seamless that it just works without the consumer having to think about what they're actually going to do. It just shows
Right.
up for them and it just works and it starts to proactively do things on the user's behalf. I think that's really the unlock for adoption.
Right. It's so seamless and intuitive, built into existing workflows, use cases that you almost don't even realize you're using the technology.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of did some of this, they being Google with with the Google Workspace products, Google Docs and Google Sheets and Gmail. It still feels a little bolted on. It doesn't quite feel ready. It doesn't quite feel like it's good enough, or seamless enough, seamlessly integrated into these products. But I think that's like between Google and Apple, they have the surface area of usage to
Yeah.
really drive adoption.
Yeah. Yeah, and it helps to have millions and millions of users using your products and
Yeah.
services because that feedback loop becomes really tight. You start to understand how your users are engaging with these new developments, with these new releases, and then you can optimize them as you go. And
Yep.
not every company has that, right?
Yeah.
Google and Apple kind of sit alone in that category, at least
Yeah.
to that level.
Some would say Meta, but we'll talk about
Yeah,
them
we'll
in a
talk about
moment.
meta. So to close the loop on performance, the 31B model ranks third on Arena AI's global open model leaderboard, and then the 26B is number six. So really good
Read
performance in
what's
that.
on screen right here. This is insane. Beats Sonnet 4.6 on
Yeah,
graduate level reasoning. 4
yeah,
billion active parameters. Runs on a 24 gigabyte Mac Mini. Beats Sonnet 4.6. By the way, Sonnet 4.6 is an incredible model.
incredible.
And look, these are benchmarks. This isn't real world usage. What makes Sonnet 4.6 special is it is an absolute workhorse and it shows up, puts the time in. It always gives you what you want. I'm actually pretty split between Opus 4.6 and Sonnet 4.6 in terms of my total usage. Opus I still go to for the most sophisticated workflows, but Sonnet is as good for the vast majority of workflows that I'm using it for. So really good model. Now, whether Gemma 4 is that powerful and that much of a workhorse is to be seen. I already, Nick, I put it on the DGX station, which
Nice.
is obviously drastically overkill, but I still wanted to run it there. I'm getting like 100 tokens per second. I bet I can speed it up, especially when NVIDIA starts to release some of their optimizations for it. And yeah, I mean, I'm plugging it into my OpenClaw setup, so we'll see.
You got to test it on the best. All right,
Right.
let's talk about Quen. So uh, another notable release. So Alibaba
Same
released,
day.
yeah, same day,
Same
released
day.
Quen 3.6 plus.
Yeah, although this isn't
And
open source, which I was a little bit surprised at.
yeah, but this one's multimodal LLM focused on agentic coding specifically, task breakdown, code generation from screenshots and design drafts, and iterative troubleshooting. So that one's interesting. So this is the third Quen model dropped, I think, this week alone. So they're moving quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, 1 million context window by default, post agentic coding benchmarks in ballpark of Claude Opus 4.5. Um,
yep.
and I think the cost is what stands out here again, 29 cents per million tokens, input tokens. So yeah, interesting model.
Yeah, the Qwen 3.6 looks like a really good model. I haven't had a chance to play around with it yet. I definitely will. It is hosted, so that is a big drawback because if, you don't want to send your data overseas, you're gonna find it a little bit difficult to run this model. Now, they did say that they're going to be open sourcing at least parts of Qwen 3.6. I don't know if explicitly this model, but they did say they're going to be open sourcing it. As soon as they do, I'll use that one. But Qwen 3.6 looks very powerful. Actually, going back to Gemma, the one thing that they were missing was the 1 million token context window, right? That seems to be the standard nowadays.
It is, yeah.
But there's always trade-offs when you're baking these models, and they chose to go smaller, more performant, less tokens, less context window. So, but Qwen million tokens, and actually, my workhorse local model has been the Qwen 3.5. I believe it's like 27B version, basically that kind of size area, the around 30 billion parameters, dense. Those models are really good. I have been running them in my production OpenClaw setup for a couple weeks now, and it's been fantastic. So I really like that size.
It might be time for another OpenClaw update. I feel like you've been in the lab for the last couple of weeks,
Yeah.
silently working.
Yeah.
Can we expect a video next week?
Possibly. I'll be honest, like I got my OpenClaw to such a good state, and then I got distracted with other things. Not that I haven't been using it, but the code base has become a little bit unwieldy, and I think I need to kind of just rein it in a little bit because there have been a lot of problems that I've had to solve lately. But that is the normal pattern for any code base that grows very quickly.
Yeah. The fixing the tech deck video probably isn't the most interesting, so we'll wait until you have something special to share.
Oh, you know what? Actually, we do have a video that we're going to be dropping probably later today, and it is related to OpenClaw. I'll give a little preview. Pliny the prompter makes a special guest appearance in it. So look out for that video dropping likely later today. It is a departure from our normal video, but I think it's going to be really cool.
So one other interesting fact that I don't have a post for to share, but apparently Qwen's monthly active users has jumped from 31 million in January to 200 million in February, March. I think
Wow.
March.
I didn't
Now
know that.
that increase is huge. It's a global increase. But
And
that
is
is
that
off.
is that the hosted version or is that any version?
I think it's any version. It's all versions.
Yeah, okay, okay. That would make more sense to me. Yeah.
Yes. But that scale means that Alibaba has this like real distribution built in now. Anytime it has a model release, you have a large audience waiting for you.
Look, Nick, this is the power of open source because enterprise companies are not looking to pay top dollar for every single token they get, nor do they need to, right? And so they're looking at the landscape of different models that they can leverage in their workflows. And then they look at Qwen, and it's a phenomenal model. It's open source. They can run it themselves. They can fine tune it. They can lure it to their heart's desire. And it works incredibly well. It's a fraction of the price. They don't need the frontier, but now we're building on top of American companies, building on top of Chinese open source models, which, it's fine because it's open source, but still, wouldn't it be great if we had more American open source models? And, I guess now we do. We have Gemma. We had RC release their thinking version this week, which I still need to cover. But like we are starting to see more American open source, which I very much love.
Yep, agreed. It's always good to see that ecosystem flourishing. The, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there were some pretty high-profile departures from the Quen team.
Right. This might be the last iteration of Quen that we see. I don't know. No, probably not. Look, this is
Probably not,
Alibaba.
but
So,
yeah,
yeah, there were like a bunch of really top people at Quen left all in the same day or the same 2 days.
yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, they're still ripping. They're still they're still pushing or shipping incredible models seemingly every week. But will they continue once their current pre-train is exhausted? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think there's speculation around the departures. Like one of the theories was as they move from kind of more of a research lab to really trying to productize and commercialize everything, that was something that those folks didn't necessarily want to work on. And you know that this reminds me of DeepMind, right? Like DeepMind had to go through this at Google where they were really pure researchers. And now that team and that lab has transitioned to a full AI product factory.
Yeah.
So
I mean, same thing with OpenAI, right?
same thing.
OpenAI went through the same thing. They were a research lab for like a decade.
Yeah.
And you know, when your research lab discovers a money printing machine, you better be sure that you're going to be printing money, and you need products around that.
Indeed. All right, let's move on to our next story here. We have the launch of Cursor 3. Now, I think that the notable things here, it's heavily centered around agents. And so there's a new agent window which allows parallel agents in isolated work trees, which I'm personally very excited about. This has always been a sticking point for me, like hopping around to different windows to work with the agents. That's really like the main feature that I'm excited about. Anything else about this release stand out to you?
No, I've actually been playing with it for a while. I got early access to the new interface. It's super nice. It does seem like all of the agentic coding interfaces are converging around kind of a single pattern, very simplistic, a focus on chat versus code. Like it seems like, by the way, excuse me, each iteration of Cursor gets less and less focused on actual code, and it's more about the conversation you're having with the agent and surfacing the context you need to make the right decisions at the right time. Anyway, so I've been using it. It's been great. The interface is much simpler. Of course, I love Cursor because they also give me free tokens, which is amazing, and I code more than I ever have right now because of that. So shout out to Cursor, but I also just think it's my favorite harness. You know, it works incredibly well. I really like the interface most of all.
Yep,
So
agreed.
yeah, and of course, I am incredibly biased, so I'm just going to put that out there.
So your point about moving beyond or further away from the code is an interesting one. I think this is like obviously by design, highly strategic. If they want to remain competitive and have this moat, they really have to become like an operating layer, right? They have
Yeah.
to be an OS for software development. And that's clear with the MCP layer, that's clear with these agentic workflows. They have this marketplace now. And so I think that that's going to help them long term kind of substantiate that moat. Otherwise, Claude Code would just eat them for lunch.
Yeah. I'm not a CLI person, or I should say I'm not a terminal person. Like I'm comfortable in the terminal, but if you're like, okay, choose between using a coding agent in a terminal and using it in an interface, I'm gonna choose an interface every time. And I think I'm in the minority on that opinion at this point. But like I still like my IDE, and you're gonna have to rip that out of my cold dead hands.
Where does Jonas stand on this?
Uh, I think he likes the IDE also.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes two of us.
Yeah. Let's keep
All
going.
right. This next one I am very excited about. Obviously, everyone has seen this already, but we're going to watch it again because it's inspiring, it's beautiful, and
And we could talk
hopefully we have
about it
some fun.
while we show it. So Nick, I posted about this on Twitter, but I wanted to share it here as well. My son, I saw the live stream was live. It was about to start. I called my son in the room. We watched it together, and you know, his eyes wide open, jaw dropped, and it was just such a special moment. And then since then, he's been taking household items like toilet paper rolls and just making little rocket ships and explaining all the different parts on them. And I mean, I'm so happy and proud of NASA and America and I don't know, it's just great. It's great to put this in front of the entire country and to show and to inspire kids to get into science and
Yeah.
technology. And it was so lovely, and obviously the first time in such a long time that we've gone close to the moon. So yeah, it was such
Preach.
like a direct correlation between watching it and then seeing what my son was into in the following few days. It was just so clear how important this stuff is.
Yeah, I mean the conversation around this stuff is always around inspiring the next generation, innovation, these things, and to see it firsthand right in front of you is an awesome moment.
Yeah, I would
Um,
love to go see a rocket launch in person, by the way.
yeah,
Maybe the future live from Tesla or NASA,
there
or
we
not
go.
Tesla, SpaceX, excuse me.
Sign me up. So this is the path that they're supposedly taking. So during this complex journey, the four astronauts will travel 685,000 miles on a trajectory around the moon and back to Earth.
Yeah, by the way, my son, he was like every morning when he woke, I'm like so impressed by how excited he is. But if it's not clear, and it makes me so excited, he wakes up in the morning and goes 4 days until they reach, around the dark side of the
Nice.
moon. And I was like, every day it's been like, oh, 5 days, 4 days, and so yeah, it's just been so awesome.
That's great. Speaking of going to a launch, these folks got a
Oh dang, I
front row
haven't seen
seat.
this.
You haven't seen this?
No, no, this
Oh
is
yeah.
cool. Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Right from the window.
Yeah, this is great. Man, that must be one so cool. One in a million to actually catch that though.
Yep.
Right time, right place.
Hmm. So and obviously this mission isn't landing. It's a test flight, right?
Yep.
To validate. I think Orion Systems is what it's called. Um, Before the surface mission. So Artemis 3, which is targeting a lunar landing, I think in 2028 is what I
Right around
read.
the corner.
It's right there. So yeah, science is back in fashion. We have a NASA launch. We have Project Hail Mary coming out, already out in
Yeah.
theaters. Have you seen it?
I have. I saw it on opening night. Um, I don't think I loved it as much as everybody else seems to have loved it. I'm more into kind of darker sci-fi. This was felt like more of a Disney sci-fi, which,
Mm,
it was great. It was a great movie, but I don't think I loved it as much as everybody else did.
yeah. Have you read Andy Weir's books?
Yes.
The Martian was a phenomenal read. Also, great movie. I
Yeah.
haven't seen Project Hail Mary yet, though.
Yeah, definitely worth seeing. 100%.
All right, let's keep rolling here. Forgot I had this one pulled up. It's what, everyone was thinking. All right, so actually I want to go to this one. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I know you have some things to say about Meta's position as all of these frontier labs orient around the goal of AGI. Where does Meta stand in your leaderboard as most likely, least likely to get there, and walk me through why?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this over the last few days, and I think I woke up this morning and I wanted to talk about it to hopefully solidify and sharpen my arguments here. When you look at the landscape of these frontier labs, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, xAI, and Meta. Meta is kind of unique. Now, I'm going to come back to them in a second. We have Anthropic, who was really the first to hyper focus on coding models and then selling the coding models to enterprise. And that is an incredible flywheel that we've talked about before on the show, but let me just rehash that a little bit. So you're building these incredible coding models, and then you sell the incredible coding models to enterprise, thus driving a ton of revenue. Coding being kind of the biggest revenue driver in artificial intelligence today. And so you get all of this revenue, but at the same time, you have the coding model that is now starting to build out the tooling to build your next model. And it's this incredible self-improving, recursive self-improving loop that happens. You have a model that is incredible at coding. It's really good at research, math, science. And so you focus in on these things, which just happens to be the exact set of features that enterprise wants. And so you have this thing where you're generating a lot of revenue, and then you're also selling that model or sorry, excuse me, you're also using that model to build your future models. OpenAI realized what was happening, and then they hyper focused on this as well. But when you look at Meta, right? How will that work with Meta? Meta focuses on consumer products. Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, these are consumer products. And so when they're thinking about building their artificial intelligence, when they're thinking about building their models, who are they building it for? They need to build it for consumers. They need to be powerful for consumers because they need to integrate them into the billions of users that use their products today. But that's a problem. If they were to focus on coding and science and math, those features don't necessarily serve consumers. And so, where does that leave Meta? We have OpenAI and we have Anthropic accelerating using this self-improving loop, but Meta is kind of left in the dust if the thing that they are building they can't sell to enterprise, which maybe it's not a big deal because they already make a ton of money from their different products. But if they're not building coding models, how are they going to build or accelerate the build process of their subsequent models? And so I've just been thinking a lot about that. And the one company that I haven't really mentioned is Google.
Yep.
Google kind of has it all, right? Google has, first of all, they already are on the frontier or near the frontier. They can build coding models because they can sell them to enterprise. They also have the consumer play. They also have cash cows. And so they don't necessarily even need the enterprise money. But anyways, I want to get your thoughts on that. Where does Meta sit in all this if the coding model isn't what's going to serve their core users?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting theory here. Like, look, so Meta obviously has one side of the equation, which is the revenue. They have an ads business that is compounding and doing extremely well. They're able to shut down $80 billion projects like the metaverse and still be just fine. So revenue is not a problem, not a part of that equation. But your point about the agentic models reinforcing how models are learning and improving. Yeah, I don't know how you solve that at Meta. The average Facebook user certainly isn't thinking about using a coding
Yeah,
model.
exactly. Exactly.
So
So,
yeah,
no,
we can
please.
expect a video soon then.
Yeah, I'm trying to put myself in Zuck's shoes and Alexander Wang's shoes and thinking about like what would I like how do because you can't the model can't do everything well, right? You
Right.
kind of have to pick the path.
Right.
And if you're going to focus on math, science, coding, RL in general, you're probably going to give up other things. But maybe like thinking about the counterpoint to that, maybe if you have just a really good coding model, it's just going to be able to generalize to consumer use cases just because that's kind of what we've seen. We've seen that trend of code being really good at code generalizing to other areas. So yeah, I think I need to think more about this. But if you're watching right now, let me know in the comments what you think.
Maybe we can get our first guest's perspective on this as well. Put them on the spot right out of the gate. So with that said, our first guest of the day is the
Yeah.
founder of BEP Research, an AI infrastructure publication, and his analysis has been validated by the engineering brass at NVIDIA. And his readers include portfolio managers and some of the world's top hedge funds. Ben, welcome to the show.
Good. We just got to get you on screen.
Here I am.
There
There
we
we go.
go. Hey Ben, good
Nice
to
to
see
In the
you.
nice to
flesh.
finally be here
Yeah,
Yes.
Ben.
with
So
with
I'll
Nick and Matt.
let me preface first with I know Ben personally. So I was excited to get you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I've been watching it for a while. You guys do a great job and great work, so keep it up.
Yeah, this has been
Thanks.
a couple months in the making, so glad we could finally make it happen. Um, do you have any perspective on Matt's theory about Meta maybe having some issues with this recursive loop?
Yeah, so there actually I was writing about this because the stock really took a huge hit, and obviously he's spending a lot of money on compute and CapEx and securing energy for the large data center in Louisiana, Prometheus. I think he's almost building his own energy trading firm to get natural gas to power the multiple gigawatts of compute that he's using. And I feel like Meta, their strategy with Manus and WhatsApp and AI and the social graph will really might translate as a super app for the rest of the world, not necessarily for the United States,
Mhm.
and be a good enough AI that's somewhat free and you don't have to pay for like an OpenAI or a Gemini or an Anthropic, but will do the stuff that you need for your daily tasks and be your personal assistant and shopping assistant and keep track of your family through the social graph and do all those things that maybe you don't want to pay for $200 for a coding assistant. And I think because they have that data, uh, they can use it to their advantage and train their models in those things because they have purchasing history, they have products, they have life events, right? This is all social context and how it relates to you in your personal life, and you can use it through WhatsApp, which is primarily used outside of the United States for commerce and booking appointments and things like that, and roll a CRM into that with Manus and have that whole agentic workflow. I just don't know how like it's going to translate what it's going to translate for users in America because yeah, they don't have like a coding assistant, they don't have uh like deep research. Like I don't know what they're going to do, but I know that they're going to have a good enough AI for the rest of the world at a discount or even free.
Yeah, that's a super interesting take, Ben. I think you might be right about that. They don't necessarily need a frontier model to serve the vast majority of the US, let alone the rest of the world, especially if you can roll it out for free, ad supported, which, when you look at Anthropic, when you look at OpenAI, they are shying away from. OpenAI even kind of rolled back their plans for monetizing their AI results or AI answers with advertising. Meta has a rich history of doing that, and they're probably not afraid to do that. And so they could offer an incredible model, but free, and maybe it's not going to do coding for you, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean that's what Zuck does. The whole point is let's increase the stickiness of our users, is give them free phones, free devices, whatever it is. How can we get them away from the iOS Apple tax of what Apple did to me through iOS and let me control my own destiny, right? He feels that he can control his own destiny by loading up as many NVIDIA GPUs and building clusters because at the end of the day, NVIDIA is not going to compete and make its own social network, right? So he feels like he can manifest his own destiny with whatever this is and create AI for the rest of the world that maybe can't afford it and give it to them on a localized basis. And it's good and it's free and it can make images and do stuff and it can go through your albums and sort, maybe it could go through like all your photos that you've uploaded over your life and create that timeline of like a baby to an adult. Maybe the AI can automatically do that for you, right? With the tools that he's building. Like it's
Yeah.
stuff like that Frontier Labs aren't thinking about, but he has all that data. Like they have all of our photos and videos. We gave it to
Right.
them.
And they're the only ones that
Yeah.
that do have
Yeah.
that data.
Yeah. We're not updating albums that like Claude.
Right. Not yet, at least. All
No,
right,
so
Ben,
that
let's take a step back. I want to hear about BEP research, what you all do, what you focus on. Give us the lay of the land there.
I've been an active semiconductor investor for, over 20 years. I studied electrical engineering at UC San Diego. I worked at Cymer, which was a company that makes the lasers for ASML for lithography in San Diego. And then I got a job at Jefferies Broadview doing tech investment banking in San Francisco for like a year and a half, working with a lot of these companies on the semi space. And then I decided to start my own LED lighting company in 2005. which I ran till 2019. And I've always been invested in the market, always excited, always followed GTC and Jensen and a lot of those keynotes. And I think around 2016 is when I decided to allocate some of my portfolio to NVIDIA because of when that's when DGX1 came out, the first box. And it was at that time it was called Accelerate Your AI Journey with Machine Learning. And I said, you know what? I think this company, we grew up playing Counter-Strike and all these video games. Like I always had an NVIDIA graphics card and it's something I always liked. And my whole premise was like, I'm in the business of selling LED lighting, and the LED is like a diode.
Hmm.
It just turns off or on. My whole premise was like, what if there was a chip that would actually give you intelligence or knowledge? That's something I always wondered, would it come someday? And the GPU basically transformed into that, and we went from a chip Ampere to Hopper to Blackwell, now Rubin, full rack scale systems and things like that. And instead of uh, trying to explain to my friends over and over again what NVIDIA does, I was like, let me start tweeting about it. Let me start writing about it because I left my company in 2019 and then to take care of my mom who was battling cancer and she passed away. And when COVID happened, and then I just got stuck in the Twitter universe and
That happened.
Clubhouse and this like whole thing and I just started writing about this what I believed in and the methodologies of the full stack of what NVIDIA is doing from software all the way to hardware with all their acquisitions and uh, it it's been resonating with a lot of people on the in the investment community as well as on the research community and you really see the benefits of the platform shine and things worked out so well that I got invited by NVIDIA to attend GTC and meet some of the engineers and interview them. And I was with Matt. We had great front row seats at the keynote with Jensen riffing off all the technical things, which to me it's pretty remarkable to see all the how he knows every model number and every
Yeah, that was insane, Ben. I
yeah.
think just to interrupt for a second, he doesn't have a teleprompter,
No.
which was, by the way, it was a
Yeah.
3 hour keynote,
Yeah.
and it was not like a lightweight, like, oh,
Oh,
here are our sales. No, no, no. He
yeah.
like got deep into the tech side of things. He had product model names.
Yeah.
I was like blown away by his ability to just riff for 3 hours, but be precisely on point the entire time.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of Jensen. Like he knows his product very well, and it's hard to find that in CEOs these days because they feel like they're so high up and they don't want to bother themselves with the details. But he knows the detail of the architecture of all of his products. He sees the vision of where it's going, and me leaving GTC come going in, I was like I was expecting something about Grok integration of the speed up, and we saw that you can get faster tokens with the Grok chip that they integrated. But the whole idea is they went from selling a chip for AI to the next thing just being called token factories. The modern factory is basically this building, this data center that's just producing tokens. That's the future.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Yeah, well,
uh,
let's talk a little bit
uh,
about tokenomics and this growth from like NVIDIA is just building chips, and then all of a sudden they're building racks, and then all of a sudden they're building entire factories, specifically to output tokens. It is a token factory, as you said. Like something interesting about Jensen, and he says this himself, but he also does it, is he kind of reveals the roadmap all along. There's nothing to hide. There's no secrecy to it. It is like, this is what we're going to do. And he tells you like 2 years in advance. So talk a little bit about that evolution from when you first noticed it in 2016 and they started building things, chips for AI, to what it is today, which is literally like top to bottom stack for artificial intelligence, whether you're talking about the connectivity, the memory, the chip itself, the cooling. Like, talk about that evolution a little bit.
yeah, I mean, and every keynote which I didn't realize runs over a few hours. A few of them were during COVID were in his kitchen, if you remember, uh, on a Zoom. But
No
he's
days off for
always,
Jensen.
yeah, he's always telling you where the puck is headed. You just have to just pay attention and listen. And he said in the 2017 GTC that software will write its own software. You can find new medicines for like protein folds. The the chips are basically recursively getting better on themselves. So basically every model is made by AI software EDA tools to design the chip to make the next chip. So it's all recursive. And I think a lot of people don't or didn't understand that concept at the point, but we sort of live in this recursive world and society where not only on the chips, but going into parallel, going from GPT-1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or all these models from Anthropic, like they take a good model and they make it bigger, and the bigger training run with the better compute produces a better model, right? So it's all recursive. Going back to Jensen and GTC, the chips are just getting bigger and better. So he went from like, you know, A100 to H100 Hopper to basically doubling Hopper to like Blackwell. Uh, and then from Blackwell, he went from like a double Blackwell to a Rubin. So the the problem isn't the chip anymore. The chip is really fast and it's processing really well. The question is how fast do you get to the data and the memory? So there's a memory challenge of accessing all the files and things that you or the videos or whatever you have stored in your KV cache in your memory, and at the same time moving that data around as fast as you can is with the optical interconnects and the cabling and the heating, and it becomes like a bigger systematic problem as opposed to just like, oh, NVIDIA makes this chip and it's really fast. So it's like you have to kind of zoom out and think bigger to what the actual constraints are because it's just not the
Yeah.
chip anymore. It's everything
Yeah,
else.
it's interesting because Jensen really illustrated it very well, where as AI moves more and more to agents and the world moves more and more to agents, agents operate very differently than humans do. They're reading and writing from databases at volumes and speeds that humans just aren't capable of. And we're starting to see bottlenecks in all of the stack, the tech stack that has been built for human usage. And that's what he's addressing. Every time he scales up from just a single chip to all the way, like we're building entire factories, that's what he's addressing. He's addressing the fact that all of the tech around the chip has been built for the previous generation of technology, for human kind of led usage. And now it's all agents. And I mean, the simple thing is like hard drive speed, right? It's not enough to like if we were reading 100 times per minute previously, now we're reading at 10,000 times per minute. And that actually takes fundamental changes at the hardware layer on the hard drive
Right.
side.
It basically like it kills the life cycle of the actual hard disk spinning over and over again. So these
Yeah.
things burn out really fast, or you need to go move to flash. But I think one of the really cool things is like if you look at GTC in the keynotes, he has like these S curves, and NVIDIA is always able to kind of be at the right place at the right time somehow of these S curves. So I guess the first biggest inflection was when ChatGPT came out, which was the fall of 2022. Remember, that was like the first aha moment where he calls it the iPhone moment for AI. What basically ChatGPT made AI accessible and made this whole boom in AI spending. And the next inflection curve is with OpenClaw and this agentic AI revolution, which for I guess many people that aren't in the tech community don't really understand the scale of what it really means. The beauty of it is it's AI using other AI to call on tools at scale. So like the usage of the compute went from like, 10x to like maybe 1,000x because you're like running multiple parallel agents at the same time using GPUs as well as CPUs to run all these processes and software. And at the same time, you're burning through, millions of tokens, which is the big issue.
Yeah.
Does the world have enough tokens? I mean, we're we're on the threads. We see X. Everyone's burning through their Claude tokens, and then Claude is like rationing and saying, "Hey, you've used enough tokens for today, and come back tomorrow." Like, dude,
The bane of our existence now.
that's a little scary. I mean,
No,
think
it is
about it.
scary. It
Yeah.
it is absolutely
Yeah,
scary, and everybody's talking about it. I mean, Sam Altman just said
yeah,
it. It's all he just did an interview, and
yeah,
he's like, it's always about compute. It's
yeah.
always about, and I think we were planning to talk about it. I don't think we actually talked about it, but yeah, Claude is, yeah, they're rate limiting like crazy, and it's painful as somebody who uses a lot of tokens. Like, I don't want to be rate limited, and it's so clear how much more growth we have left.
Yeah, so related to this, Ben, I want to get your perspective on this. So you talking about the life cycle of this hardware, Matt Garman, CEO of AWS, said that they haven't retired an A100 yet. And so there's still not enough GPUs, right? What
Well,
do
the
you
the
make of this, and what do you make of the demand curve as a result of these kind of GPU generations?
Yeah, that's what Jensen said is GPUs are aging like fine wine, and what they do is with the full software stack and Dynamo that NVIDIA has, plus with CUDA, because it's open source, they're able to make older hardware still work and be performant. Like, like, like we can't make our older Teslas more fuel efficient and performant, right? They don't like if like I have an old Tesla, like it's not I'm not getting more like miles per charge. The battery's
Right, right.
degrading. It's like it's worthless. But like the value of an A100 or H100 on the rental market is still stable because it's still performant. It's still providing the tokens that people need. You get it? You still get utility out of it. And
So
I think that's where people kind of miss the boat. Even if he's selling new hardware like Vera Rubin this year, that's like way more expensive. The efficiency unlock on making tokens, like your cost per token goes way down for a token factory. So the more you buy of these newer models, the more you save. I mean, that's kind of what he's saying.
Ben, last thing, I want to hear if you are going to give advice to folks that are looking at the industry and trying to understand where this hardware is going, what would you tell them?
Uh, the hardware ecosystem is become more complicated. uh, I think we lived in this era of discrete chips, like the Intel CEO would come out with like Pentium, and then people like Dell would buy like a computer and have like a bunch of random parts in it. I think today's world of compute is more full stack, more hardware, software co-design, and uh, more things are tightly integrated and controlled by the company when it comes to the power and the optics and everything. So I think you're going to see tighter, more closed ecosystems as opposed to like more open, disparate parts. But obviously, there's other companies out there that are trying to come after NVIDIA from it's like Tensorent or Samba Nova or Positron. Everyone's trying to come out and say their inference is cheaper because you train your model, uh, you make your model with like flour and water, but you make your bread with inference. And I think that's like the way I look at it. Inference is everything, but then inference is hard because it's thinking. And I wrote this piece that I'm coming out later on today and tomorrow. It's that I feel like the world has too much oil and not enough compute, and it revolves around how the dollar and tokens and tokenomics are going to be like the next type of compute, and everything's going to be in terms of dollars because of whole compute stack from NVIDIA GPUs to Hynix memory chips to the engineers and everything is all priced in dollars. And when it comes to software companies, I feel like every AI software company is like a token reseller. They buy compute at wholesale, they add some intelligence, and then they sell tokens at retail. Their margin is the spread. And if the token has become the atomic unit of the AI industry, then it's all denominated in dollars. So like the AI industry and everything is dollar denominated.
Hmm.
And like that's what Jonathan Ross was talking about. Like the token dollar is like a big deal, but everyone's kind of focused on the Strait of Hormuz and $100 a barrel for oil. All that stuff will open up and will be temporary. The world has enough oil. America has a lot of oil. I mean, that's not going to go anywhere, but the world, in my opinion, today, and we're here sitting talking about it, is short compute. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people aren't talking about it. And I think your next guest, Wayne from Ornn Exchange, these guys are pretty smart about it. They're building a futures hedging market for compute because
Yeah.
you don't know where it's going to go. Like you got to lock in your prices or hedge because like things are compute constrained, and like building a data center is very hard, very capital intensive. Finding the power is everything, and like putting all these things together, like your business can't move if your models aren't there and you don't have the compute. And I think a lot of people are going to realize it's the hard way. This is not something to sneeze on, and it's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah.
Ben,
Too much oil. I was going to say, have you seen the gas prices in Marin? Whew.
Yeah. It's the special California blend with like refinement. I mean,
Yeah, there it is.
eventually, once you see a future of battery based cars and self-driving and things like that, like our oil dependency is just going to be less and less and less. And you
Yeah.
dovetail that with AI and everything, it's just like oil is going to be like a non-issue. The world is just going to be all compute driven.
Yeah.
Everything is going to be inference. Everything.
I
And
I hope you're right about that. That's a future I would like to be in, especially if oil is plentiful, or if our demand for it reduces. Ben, if people want to follow you, where do they find you?
I'm on Substack, so it's BEP Research at Substack, and then I'm on Benito's at X, and I have a YouTube channel, BEP Research, where people can see some of the cool interviews that I've done. I love the hardware space. For the past 15 years, all the software guys were getting all the action and SF with SaaS and
It's your
everything. But
time, Ben. It's your
it's my
time.
time, baby. Hardware is back.
That's right.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Go check him
Thanks.
out if you want to learn everything about hardware. He has some awesome takes. So, Ben, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
Ben.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good weekend.
Yeah,
All
see you
right.
soon.
Yeah, good.
That was fun.
Good like transition between our guests too, because obviously Ben's super deep on the hardware side, thinking about tokenomics, and now we get to talk to Wayne from Ornn about how you can actually think about tokenomics in more depth and hedging against it and how to think about. I don't know. It's really interesting what they're doing, so I'm excited
Yeah.
to talk to them.
I mean, that's how we do it at the Future Live.
Oh yeah, totally,
Meticulous show design.
absolutely
Yeah. All right.
intentional
Well,
for sure.
let's make the transition right now. Wayne, he is the co-founder and CTO of Ornn, the company building the financial infrastructure for the AI compute market. He has an interesting background, but I'm going to let him speak to it. So, Wayne, welcome to the show.
Hey
Hey
guys,
Wayne.
nice to see you. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you as well. So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little of your background and what you all are building at Ornn.
Yeah, so just on myself, I went to MIT. I was a math and computer science major at MIT. I graduated just last year. But post grad, I was a quant trader. I was trading equity options at Susquehanna here in New York in the financial district. And I was there for about a year cumulatively across the internships and full time. And I decided, I was looking at all of these stocks, all these options on these stocks that were, ex Bitcoin mining, the GPU as a service. And I saw, you know, companies like Iron and Cypher and TeraWulf just doing super well in this new AI economy. And I realized, maybe I should be on the other side of the desk. I should be building the companies, not trading them. And I joined one of my best friends from school, Kush, and we started Ornn. And so, yeah, what Ornn does is build financial infrastructure for the AI economy. And what that really means is we're a risk allocation, uh, risk mitigation platform, building out products like futures, swaps, derivatives to help, build out data centers quicker and more easily.
Talk a little bit more about how that connects with each other. When you're talking about derivatives and futures, like how does that allow companies like OpenAI or Anthropic to build out infrastructure more quickly?
Yeah, certainly. So when you're building out these data centers, it requires huge capital expenditures, right? There's hundreds of billions of dollars being used to buy not only the site and power the land, but also just to buy the GPUs. Um, and in this sort of high capex environment, the lenders and the financiers really want some certainty. I think there's a lot of uncertainty across the board, not just in the model layer, not just in the application layer, but in the actual silicon layer itself. And so when you're deploying capital, you want to know that, in the bear case, that I'll be protected, right? There's some hedge for me. And I think this is kind of the pattern that we've seen across most of infrastructure build out. But just today, the need is so heavy because of the pure scale.
So yes, speaking of like this pricing, almost volatility, like if you look at the GPU deals that have happened kind of behind closed doors, it seems like the prices vary wildly. Like what is that? Why? What is contributing to that? What's broken there? And just how much price variation is there in those kinds of deals?
Yeah, sure. So you're exactly hitting the nail on the head there. Like there's so much price opacity today. Each deal is bespoke. There's no standardization of, any sort of spec of
Right.
the deal itself. And just in looking from a baseline perspective, first principles, even reliability is hard to protect against, right? Sometimes things go down. We saw, Amazon blackout, a few months ago. I think, you know, because there's all this opacity, it's really tough to plan out capex. You've seen hyperscalers say that they would deploy, 600, billion, 7 trillion in 2030 in capex.
Mhm.
But the truth is, right, at the end of the day, if you're a financer, even with a huge balance sheet, you want to see some certainty, some cash flows. And so it's really hard today. It's just a really uncertain environment.
Who benefits the most from the opacity? I mean, clearly you have the NVIDIAs of the world. Are there less obvious winners?
Yeah, I mean, I think today the people that benefit from the opacity are those that can charge more than, maybe what market might be dictating. I think like inherently those with pricing power are either those that are buying a lot of compute, right? Think the big foundational labs, and those that are selling a lot of compute. So think the biggest hyperscale players, right? In a market in which there's not a lot of information symmetry, when there is a lot of information asymmetry, the people that win are often those that don't have the most, or that do have the most information.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to ask you a little bit about compute trading because this seems wild to me. Can you explain, first of all, what compute trading is and then how it might actually be leveraged in our current token economy?
Yeah, and Wayne,
Yeah, yeah.
this is a great question. I'm very curious about this, but maybe keep in mind that there could be people watching who have never traded a commodity before, right? And so give us kind of like the 101 explanation of this.
Sure, sure. So at any basic level, trading is, I guess the goal of trading, right, is to buy low and sell high. There's probably some scarce resource, or some, piece of equity. You can think of like public equities in the stock market, right? You have a bet and you believe that something might rise in value, so you'll purchase it and sell it at a later time. I think in especially nascent markets, trading has the benefit of also providing liquidity, so providing an ability to buy and sell to an end user. So specifically for compute, right? There's a lot of people in the world that are looking for compute access, not just the biggest labs in the world, but also enterprise and consumer usage of computing capacity. And there's also, of course, people that are looking to sell capacity. So they bought GPUs from NVIDIA or others, and they have pretty much an asset sitting there that's ready to be rented. So currently in the market today, and this is just a bit of insight, there's people that have made their whole careers out of brokering capacity. So they'll buy from people with excess capacity, and then they'll sell to people who need to use the GPU at a later point in time. And so, because, pointing back to the opacity question before, right? Oftentimes in some of these brokering situations, you'll have a broker talking to a broker, talking to a broker, right? There might be three or four brokers in this one transaction. And I think, that causes a lot of price inefficiency, let's say.
So you don't want the brokers getting their margin, huh?
I think there's just a more efficient way of doing this.
Fair enough.
That's a very political way of saying get the middleman out of there.
Yeah.
And by the way, I agree, get him out. Uh, it's interesting because when you think about compute, I mean, we were just talking to Ben, and we talk about this all the time. There doesn't seem to be enough compute, period. There's just there's so much demand for tokens, not enough compute. How do you balance that with trading? Because if one side has not enough supply and there's just tremendous demand and it never fluctuates in the other direction, or at least not in the foreseeable future, how do you trade against that?
Yeah, I mean, so price has this wonderful way of balancing supply and demand. Going back to Econ 101, right? I think you're exactly right. There is so much demand for compute, and we see in the market today in terms of just a lack of, clusters of B200s or H100s, right, in the market. Pretty much this scarcity is what makes a futures market possible and real, right? People want to know that if I want future capacity, that I can go out and buy it today. And the more people buy that future capacity, the higher up the price will go, right? So I think in theory, like trading itself doesn't consume any compute. It just allocates the compute resource more efficiently to those who need it the most.
So Wayne, to be honest, was not familiar with her company 24 hours ago, and now I'm quite infatuated, super interested in what you guys are doing. I was looking through your feed. You've announced a number of partnerships. Let's talk through a couple of those. So Hyperbolic to begin, friends of the show, actually. Tell us what you're doing with them.
Yeah, so Jasper is great at Hyperbolic. Pretty much we have an arrangement in which we can help procure compute for him and kind of work with him on the actual delivery of compute capacity, right? A lot of these businesses are very capacity constrained, as we just talked about. And we have relationships with many data centers, AI data centers, AI factories that have potentially excess compute sometimes, fleeting, of course. And then in return, we get transaction history data. I think taking a step back and thinking about Ornn as a business, what do we do? What is our service, right? From a first level, high level perspective, we provide data, right? So we accumulate data in terms of transaction pricing for a lot of these deals that occur in the market. So literally, how much is someone paying per hour for renting a GPU cluster? And then using that data, we can create an index. And that's kind of alludes to maybe another announcement that you saw this morning, but I'll let you get to that.
No, please. It's a great. Well, actually, before we talk about Bloomberg, tell us about the data that you're getting from Hyperbolic, and then how the data quality really matters as an input into what you are building.
Yeah, I mean, so data quality for us is everything. What we pride ourselves in is being a quality data aggregator. So we collect price history, transaction prices live from a variety of sources, including Hyperbolic. Our first public partnership was with HydraHost, the great guys over there, Aaron and Ariel. They're a huge brokerage of compute. They also have their own platform where they help develop data centers. But all in all, they have exposure to so many deals, and their deal flow is really enriches our own data feed. And so what we do is we kind of grab pieces of data in all of these maybe not so aggregated exchanges, right? It's kind of bifurcated, and we accumulate all of that information into our platform and then use it to create a index of prices.
All right. You set me up perfectly for this. Let's talk about Bloomberg. What does this mean to have your GPU price index live on Bloomberg?
Yeah, I think, thank you so much. I mean, it was a huge step for us. I think it really shows that this commodity can be tracked and traced over time. Bloomberg is the gold standard for financial data. I think there's so many financial institutions. When I was at Susquehanna, we all had Bloomberg terminal access, and across the board, right, a lot of people do as well. I think it gives, institutional investors, it gives data center operators, pretty much everyone in the space access to this data. And with this access, right, comes more or a we hope that this can provide more demand for price transparency in the market overall, right? If I see that I'm paying 3x the price that our index is kind of pointing to, maybe that raises some questions for you. Can I get it cheaper? Or on the flip side, if I'm a data center selling it for less, can I maximize revenues more potentially?
Interesting. All right. Well, that's a big moment. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you're partnering with the supply side when you are working with data centers, GPU holders, compute inference providers? Like who do you work with specifically, and how do you work with them?
Sure. I mean, there's a few ways, right? So I think the most obvious way is we actually give away for data centers to monetize their spare capacity. And we're working towards building a better platform for that. But effectively, right, one of these issues that is in the market today is that I have a GPU and I've rented it out, or I haven't rented it out, and I need a way to effectively cash flow it. Because otherwise, if this hour kind of disappears, I've made no money and I've actually lost because in theory, the way I've underwritten this asset is I should have cash flowed some revenue for that, right? And so by building out this platform, we're effectively saying, look, you know, you can find a tenant, you might not find a tenant or like a renter, but you'll always be able to monetize that asset at least to a baseline level. So I think that's like the first level of functionality here. And also it's a flywheel, right? I think like the more supply side partners we have, it reinforces the data feed, which then again reinforces, the liquidity that's on our platform and then the amount of trading that people can do on our platform.
So Wayne, I read the Spider Network. I think we finished it last month. Have you ever read that?
I have not, unfortunately, no.
All right, so it's about the manipulation of LIBOR, the
Mm.
index. Um, is there any concern of manipulation of this kind of index in an industry that is um, a little bit in the Wild West phase? There's obviously a lot of money to be made. Or is that not based on how it's structured, based on the checks and balances, that's not something that necessarily would be a concern for the average investor?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something we always care about. I think the number one question we get is, what does the robustness of your index look like? And I think, this partnership with Bloomberg, is pushing us towards the direction of showing that to the market specifically that this index is, trending towards being non-manipulatable. But of course, there's always those concerns from a data integrity standpoint that we care about. So what I would say to that point is we are trying to reinforce the pool of data that we have access to every day. I come into work thinking like, how can I make the data better? How can I get exclusive rights to all the data that we have access to? And how can I make sure that, people can't push up the prices because of one or two deals? I think, inherently one thing that makes our index less manipulatable than maybe some of the other ones out there is that we don't track any offer prices. So the joke we like to say in the company is, if you ask a bunch of used car salesmen what the price of a Toyota Corolla is, you're never going to get the real answer, right? Because they're just going to tell you the price that they want to sell it for.
Right.
What we do is we make sure that all we do is track a trade tape. And, historically, this is how all commodities indices really work.
The trade tape, what does that mean?
So literally just transaction prices,
Got it.
where compute is actually being transacted for.
Got it. Cool.
And so the value to the supply side for working with Ornn is that they're going to be able to monetize potentially underutilized GPUs, and then in return you get to see the tape, as you say. You get
That's
that.
exactly right.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Wayne, where should people find you if they want to learn more about this?
Yeah. So we have a website. It's ornn.com. We're fairly active on X these days. But I would say largely like we are at such an interesting intersection, right, between AI infrastructure and finance. I think a lot of the conversations often like how can we use AI to better better our workflows, create better tools. And inherently like I can say with honesty, like in our company, we are very AGI pilled. We think AI has humongous benefits. And we also believe, yeah,
Yeah.
but we also believe that like models are commoditizing a little bit, right? Like the switching cost between some of the top
Yeah.
models, it's really nothing these days, and you can hop
Yeah.
between them as they get better. For us, right, our inherent belief is that the real difference now is not in the models themselves, but the cost per token, right? And maybe this is kind of what you were talking about before. How efficiently can I produce these tokens? And that really comes down to rack design, right? That goes all the way up the stack to data center development. And so, what we saw when we started the company is like, do we want to be an application layer company? Do we want to be building AI tooling for XYZ? Like, no, maybe not. Like, I think what's way more interesting is thinking about how can we lubricate the process of financing all this infrastructure that's so necessary for, regardless of where AI takes us, we're going to need the hard infrastructure somewhere in the world.
Well, Wayne, super interesting what you're building. I'm very happy that you came on and explained it. So you can find him, Ornn. You said ornnai.com or ornn.com?
Or both of them actually, but ornn.com is the new one.
Cool.
Got the redirect set up. Nice.
On Twitter, Ornn Exchange and Wayne_Nelms. Thank you, Wayne. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks. Man, fascinating. Yeah, I think he said at the end something really true that we've talked about a lot about, which is the models are there's very low switching costs for all of the frontier models.
Yep.
It's effectively zero, right? You just basically change your prompt file, and then you could swap out GPT-5.4 for 4.6 or whatever else comes out. All of the model companies are leapfrogging each other seemingly every other week. So it's interesting to see where the value is actually going to be created.
Yeah. The stickiest part of all of this for me has been agentic workflows. Like once you start setting up these agents to do recurring tasks, it becomes a lot harder to switch.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting discussion. Well, with that said, let's bring on Jayden, good friend of the show. Let's see if he's here. I think
he's here.
Oh, here we go.
Here.
There he is.
Welcome, sir.
Welcome back.
How we doing? How we doing? What's going on?
Doing
Thanks
well.
for-
We might have a few things to talk about today.
I have a feeling that would be the case. I think it's been a big couple of days for guys like us actually. I think I'm gonna go ahead and say it.
Yeah. So
Jayden,
as a fellow,
before we get into the news,
Please.
I have to share that I am now your neighbor. And so as Matt and I open up our studio in the city, we would like to extend an invitation to you to come by anytime you want.
oh yeah,
Well, I appreciate it. I would absolutely. I would love for this to happen. Yeah. Let me know. I'll be right there.
You'll be the first to know. All right, let's dig into
Appreciate
it.
this.
So let me set this up. As fellow podcasters, something kind of big happened this week. TBPN, live streaming technology and business podcast, was acquired by OpenAI, seemingly out of nowhere. And let's just start with Jayden. When you first saw the news, what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was to check the timestamp because it was day after April Fool's, so I had to be very, very careful. I thought, okay, what kind of sick twisted joke is this? Had to check for the timestamp. Was it sent at 11:59, like the day before? Had to really check. Anyway, turns out it was sent at 10:25 a.m. Pacific time on April 2nd. That's at least when John Coogan made his post. And yeah, and I still thought twice. I was still thinking, no, there's no way that this is happening. But actually, that did in fact happen, and all I can say is congrats to the guys. What a win. Big news for new media. And I've got to say maybe what we're all thinking is what happens to the niche San Francisco technology culture podcasters now? Does MOTS get acquired by Anthropic? Many have been saying this. All I can say is that if any of the larger AI labs want to get down to brass tacks here and have a little bit of a chat, I am open to ideas. That's all I'll say.
So
I can
just
only
to
assume
clarify, doors wide open, right?
No, of course. Everybody's got a price. That's all I'm going to say.
I can only assume that the paperwork is being drawn up as we speak.
Yeah, I can. All the frontier labs are scrambling to pick up every San Francisco niche technology podcast out there. So I think you're front of the line, Jayden. But let's talk a little bit more about the details here. So, you know, TBPN and OpenAI both came out at the same time with the announcement, or around the same time. They talked about editorial independence. They talked about kind of TBPN maintaining control. Like, what are your thoughts around what OpenAI gets out of this deal?
Having thought about it quite a bit yesterday, I think it's actually pretty simple, and I think it's likability. I actually think it is almost all likability. It is trying to change the the trajectory of AI messaging and how these labs, or OpenAI in particular, are perceived by the general public. I think John and Geordie are some of the most likable figures in technology. Of course, they're a news show, so they tend to be neutral on issues. My friend Theo Brown and I did a podcast yesterday, so that's T3.gg, of course.
I watched some of that. It was good.
Fellow YouTuber, and I think he made a really, really great point. And it wasn't as sort of Theo's style. It's always very pointed, very brutally honest. But he made the point of talking about or asking me, like, what are John and Geordie's views on AI? Like, what is a particular view that I could perhaps recount off the top of my head, and I could actually say none. And that's actually a feature, not a bug, in this particular situation, right? They're there to report the news. They have become more and more neutral as TBPN has grown, but they've stayed just as likable, right? I mean, I couldn't see any quote tweet dunk at all. I think if they had a smidge of unlikability, right? If they had even a few haters, I think an OpenAI deal, right, considered to maybe be selling out. Again, I'm not saying that. I'm saying congratulations, and I absolutely would have taken that deal myself. But I think if they had any haters, there was actually quite a fair bit of surface area for attacks, right, or even like a hit piece or something like that. We've seen none of that so far, and I'd be hard pressed to say that. I'd be hard pressed to see that happening at all. Actually, they're just good guys. They're good guys on camera, and and I can vouch for them off camera as well.
I think that's so well said. The only thing I would add is they've done such a good job of being optimistic, and I don't think they do it in a way that is not realistic about the risks, right? But they do take this optimistic angle towards AI while also not being extremely AGI pilled or anything like that.
Yep.
So I think that level-headedness is also really attractive. They've done a great job of finding that balance. But I think that's very well said.
Yeah, it's optimistic, not sycophantic. I mean, and having done a little bit of work with them myself, and sort of seeing sort of the inside workings of their growth loop, at least in the early days. I mean, I was joking yesterday that I was actually instrumental in this deal. I worked with them for just a couple of months, and so to see them kind of get to where they are now and see this happen, it's really, really cool. But yeah, I think that's always been the case with them. Of course, they, like any good technologist does, they have opinions on these things. But I think, exactly like you said, they do a really, really great job of taking the middle ground and obviously like weighing in where they see appropriate, but overall remaining optimistic and just staying fun and likable.
Yeah. I see a lot of the critiques about the deal, the ones that I did see, typically from traditional media, about editorial independence.
Yep.
And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't think they've ever been editorially independent. They've never been unbiased. They've never claimed to be. And as you said, that's a feature, not a bug. If you're looking for completely unbiased opinions, TBPN, maybe not the place to go to. But if you're looking for great information, great riffing, great takes, optimistic views, TBPN is a fantastic place to get that. So why do you think people are pointing at the deal and talking about something that really was never a thing to begin with?
Yeah, it's a great point, actually. It's a great point. I think, I think to that, if some company were to give me, low hundreds of millions of dollars, and I might say that I might remain, editorial and independent. I'll refrain from criticism. I think in the back of my mind, though, it's like, okay, these guys just gave me low hundreds of millions of dollars.
Of course,
probably gonna think okay of them. But in that same token, I think think to just take, to take the other side a little bit briefly, I think because they are not known for their pointed views, right? They, like I mentioned, right? It's like we think of John and Geordie. I couldn't name like a particular view that they have on the technology as a whole, other than remaining relatively optimistic. And so I think that does lend some credence to the editorial independence point. Obviously, we've seen sort of the points from, whether that's from the contract or the negotiations, those sorts of things have been circulating online. That's in regards to TBPN's brand independence. So OpenAI will not sort of infringe on the brand. They'll not. I think there was also a line there in that saying that OpenAI will not actually have any influence on the host's likeness. I believe that was a point as well. And I think it really does come back to OpenAI improving their messaging, right? Improving how they come across to the general public. And I do think that it is in their interests for TBPN to not become sycophantic in any way, shape, or form. I absolutely don't think that would be the case. Of course, the whole thing is like as to what editorial independence actually looks like in practice. I mean, maybe is there going to be a giant OpenAI logo up where the ramp logo used to be? I don't really know. I mean, right now they've replaced everything with TBPN. They've moved away. Of course, they're moving away from the ad-supported business model, and they have all the resources of OpenAI at their disposal. So it'd be interesting to see what that looks like, how OpenAI is tied in, if they're tied in at all. So it's all one of my favorite sayings of all time, as somebody who speaks a lot online, is I guess we'll see, or time will tell.
And Jayden, the thing that I'm struggling to understand is like OpenAI made this acquisition, and they are promising not to get involved, but at the same time they're saying we want to help craft the narrative around our company and artificial intelligence more broadly. How can they have those conflicting ideas? Because if they're not going to get involved, they're removing the advertising from the business. They're basically just going to fund it, which, by the way, seems like an altruistic venture, which I wouldn't associate with Sam Altman and team, but maybe. How does that actually work in practice?
It's a great question. I actually don't think I know. I mean, I think if there's anything that I can actually add to that is that out of all the AI labs, I would go as far as saying that OpenAI is the most laissez-faire with their comms. Right? We see this, of course, especially in the wake of Anthropic versus the Department of War, and sort of Sam Altman, swooping in and sort of. He says he kind of tried to save it for everybody. At least that's sort of, that's the perception, and I think he's actually said things along those lines. But of course, what you actually saw following that is you had OpenAI researchers, I believe, the prominent one was Aidan McLeod, on the X timeline coming out against what his company, right, the company that he works for, has actually done. I think at a lab like Anthropic, they'd be fired immediately. At a lab like XAI, they'd be fired immediately. Heck, I would say even at most FANG companies, they'd probably be fired, or at least they'd have a stern talking to. Whereas OpenAI's comms, I mean, it seems like they're free to roam. Of course, it's pretty well known now that Rune, the famous shit poster, he is an OpenAI employee, and he still posts like he usually would, right? So it's one of those things in which they are laissez-faire. I think out of all the labs, I think they would let TBPN do what they must. It's yet to be seen. Again, I could see a giant OpenAI logo just being there in the top corner, and then sort of claiming the optimism of John and Geordie, and and their good looks and the production quality and all of these sorts of things. so there's like hotness, likability, all probably good for the messaging, I would say.
So if you're Anthropic, are you sending your researchers, are you sending your product leaders over to TBPN?
Probably not. I think based on what I know of how they operate their comms, and again, this is a 40,000-foot view from the outside of a 27-year-old podcaster. so there's got to add that big disclaimer.
No, you are
there.
Authoritative, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate you guys are saying that, not me. But from the outside, it does seem like I'd be hard pressed to see Anthropic sending their researchers TBPN's way now.
Yeah, so, I think the thing that we've already talked about this, but the thing that drew people into the show There's an entertainment element, there's a likability element, there's an optimistic element. There's also this kind of thing that we haven't mentioned, which is trust. Like they have become
Yep.
a trusted source of information.
Yes.
And Jayden, to your point, that doesn't always come from their perspective and their POV. It's from their guest's POV.
Yep.
And if they can maintain that, I think they're gonna be okay. But the self-moderation, the bias when you're kind of one fiancé is also your boss. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
So that to me is the risk, and as to use your words, we shall see.
Yeah.
The
Jayden,
other thing. Oh, Matt, go ahead if you had something on
no,
that.
I want to switch topics. I want to actually zoom out for a sec, but keep going.
Yeah, I want to talk about timing. So the
Mhm.
timing of this is really interesting to me because you're looking at a show that is on a growth curve like this.
Yep.
And I think it was last year they did 5 million and it was reported that they were going to do 30 million this year.
Yep.
And so obviously that kind of growth gives you a lot of leverage. But you have to imagine that they haven't reached their upward potential, not even close. And so it felt soon for something like this. Would you agree, or were you not surprised at the timing?
Um, it's a good point. I think yeah, it's always hard to say like when they are in the midst of that upward trajectory. I think when it comes to working with brands, and of course, you guys would know as well as anybody, right? When it comes to stuff like renewal season, when it comes to managing brand expectations, the rollover of sponsors, all of these sorts of things, I think. I think the reason why TBPN is able to charge so much, especially this year, is because all of these brands, right, and then they tend to be very blue chip brands. They it's hard to say without being completely on the inside. And of course,
Yeah.
obviously Dylan, they hired Dylan Abrascato full time in order to manage those partnerships. But I think with these sorts of things and at that price point, I would assume that brands are going to assume like that same upward trajectory, and there creates for any media company, right, there creates a level of stress, right? It's like okay, well, what if there's sort of a downtime, right? Have we maxed out our views? Is this the top? I mean even when with what I'm doing, right, I mean it's like I'm working just by myself, but yeah, it always crosses my mind. It's like, oh, when renewals come through, it's like, have I done enough? Have I done enough to justify that upward trajectory? Have I
Right.
done enough? Is my viewership, is the quality of my viewership enough in order to justify the price point that I set when I previously renewed the contracts or when I previously actually obtained the contracts itself? And so I think that's always one thing to keep in mind with with how media companies operate. Managing brands is really, really tough. It takes up a ton of time. Again, you guys would I'm sure you guys would know.
Yeah, I mean,
as
we
good as
we can
anyone.
have a creator therapy session like as a new
Nice.
segment together. This is great. It's making me quite happy to hear you say these things. We definitely feel it,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. And so with that, it's and I guess to sort of tie it back around to like maybe they've sold out, maybe they I say sold out, maybe they've sold Freudian slip, maybe they've sold
Clip it.
too early. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Cancelled. The San Francisco PD is outside of my door right now with a defamation case. But basically, it's one of those things in which. They may have sold too early, but at the same time, who knows? Like maybe
Who
renewal
knows?
season's coming around, right?
Yeah.
Maybe their viewership and maybe their growth has tapered in a way on the platforms that they're really tracking those key metrics. Maybe the growth is not there to renew at that current price. That's sort of that's the bear case on them, and so that would lend itself to the idea that they sold at a perfect time. Again, we don't know because we're not on the inside, but I think thinking about the two scenarios is useful. And obviously, yeah, you guys know as well as anybody how these brand deals work.
Yeah, Jayden, I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about new media in general. Right, we had A16Z coming out with new media. We've had multiple or a few acquisitions by tech companies of media companies. And now we have this one, TBPM by OpenAI. What do you think this means for the broader landscape of media more generally and then new media more specifically?
So there's one thing. So I have here's what I hope is happening, and that is I think and hope that startups, larger tech companies, all of these sorts of things, they're paying attention to their messaging, they're paying attention to how they're perceived by perhaps a broader audience, but at the same time, I think some of them are probably realizing that the in-house pivot to media as a distribution channel is not always the best way to go. I mean, if you're a heavily technical product, heavily technical team, perhaps it's not the best idea to put your staff engineers in front of a camera. It's just maybe it's not exactly the right personality type, and so there's points to the independent creators for that, right? For brands to work with independent creators, because it's like, okay, well, maybe perhaps I'm better off to outsource the brand stuff, outsource the media stuff to people that do it full time, and we can get the best of both worlds. And I think with TBPN in particular, I think it's important to note that John Coogan is very, very technical, right? Especially John, he's very technical. He knows how a computer works, and I find that the best creators, in my opinion, in the space, they tend to be those that can kind of toe the line between media native and tech native, right? They know how a computer works, they know how TCP/IP works, they know what happens when you type into a search bar, and they know what that process is, the three-way handshake, all of those sorts of things. They actually know, like almost like a surface level, like a baseline level of how computers work, how the internet works, and to bring it back around, I think maybe we see a bit of a trend for the larger companies starting to take some of these independent creators in-house. So I wouldn't be surprised if this sets off a bit of a chain reaction effect with those that perhaps work in, what we call the new media space or the tech media space.
Do you think there's something special about live, or is that just happens to be the format that they played in, and live is very popular right now, but is it not specific to live? Can it just be the new media format of, podcasts, just independent and straight to the camera, building a direct audience? What do you think?
Yeah, so I actually think it comes down to quality of audience. And, and obviously, like, I can, when I was chatting with Theo about this yesterday, he kind of pushed back a little bit on this. But I would say, even just as a tech company that might be in the market for a creator that has a presence online, I think the quality of audience matters the most, or at least the perceived quality of audience. And I think the form factor actually matters a little bit less. Even with MOTS, right? When I started out, I figured that the little growth hack on X was to actually sort of almost like premiere the show as like a live stream. Of course, it wasn't actually live, but on X you get all of that free screen real estate. You get the badge up and top. It gets prioritized over Twitter Spaces, those sorts of things. But I've since pivoted to just posting it on X with timestamps. People will watch the bits that they want to watch, and then obviously use the sort of TBPN method in which they pioneered, right? Because, I think it's pretty well known that across platforms and those that tune in live, their viewership, their sheer numbers are actually not that big. I mean, compared to, YouTube creators and those sorts of things. And they're okay with that. They're more than okay with that, because they would say, and, I would tend to agree with them here, that their core audience is what is valuable, and their core audience is what companies are trying to get in front of. That is LPs, senior managers at larger tech companies, startup founders, those that you would consider to be high net worth individuals. And so for companies to get in front of them, it's really, really good. And so I think it comes down to quality of audience versus the actual form factor of the thing.
Yeah, certainly the audience that the brands want to get in front of, and the audience that OpenAI wants direct access to. So
yep.
Yeah. How important do you think it is to record your interviews from a gym setting to be attractive to one of these acquisitions?
Oh, I mean, give me a chance to talk my own book. Don't mind if I do. I mean, I think, I think for me personally, obviously that is top of mind, extremely important. I need to find different ways to, get my arms on camera, all of these sorts of things. Also a shout out to companies, wanting to sponsor my arms. I'm putting bids out for tattoo space, all of those sorts of things.
What's the current rate right now?
Yeah.
So I put it to A16Z. I said 500K. So I said $500,000 for a permanent tattoo slot. And Christian Kyle from A16Z, he mentioned that that is actually $18 a day, considering the lifetime of a tattoo being about 80 years. So I actually think I've got to revise my numbers, because I think $18 a day feels a little low for permanent real estate, and what I'd consider to be valuable real estate now.
Yeah,
so,
they're getting a deal. Yeah.
Yeah,
By the way,
myself.
the first interview I ever saw of yours was with Dwarkesh in the gym, and it was great. It was so well done.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Good setting. It works.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is a
everybody's
lot
been
of fun.
talking about MOTS's upgraded production quality for the gym workouts. A bit concerning. I think it has some people concerned. But yeah, I look forward to continuing with them. So yeah, next guest I think will be very, very funny in particular.
Jayden, share a little bit about what your plans are for MOTS. What is the vision?
Honestly, the vision is to just double down on what I'm doing right now. I think currently, it's something that I think about every single day. I think it's probably pretty obvious, but with that sort of thing, I remember in the first month when I started MOTS, I figured, okay, release it the way it is. It's going to be super, super scrappy for a little bit. I'll get a producer on full time. We'll start to up it, get multiple camera angles, all of those sorts of things. And as soon as I trialed that, it just didn't really move the needle for the form factor. And, I think there is a little bit of charm to sort of deliberately very low production quality. Some people might call that a cop-out. But, I would go ahead and say it also makes it easier for me to post, sometimes up to 2 episodes a week, just on the fly, emergency episode, like that one of yesterday, covering TBPN OpenAI. And so I think just doubling down on the form. I think doubling down, getting the emergency episodes in, and then, in order to go after other channels like YouTube, and again, you guys would know as well as anybody that YouTube is particularly difficult actually, right? And, the retention, all those sorts of things, but it is a particularly useful channel because it is one in which people watch all the way through. That's where something like, Swole as a Service, the gym series comes in, much higher production quality, much more thoughtful when it comes to the form and the hook, right? Of course, we've got the chest max challenge, that is max push-ups in 60 seconds, right? Trying to keep people around to watch to the very end.
Can we pause there? What's the
Yes.
what's the current record?
So current record. So there's been 3, obviously, Dwarkesh Sholto and Liam Fettis. So he's the co-creator of ChatGPT, now founded Periodic Labs, who's now building an AI scientist. But he got 72. 72.
Wow, that's
72 in
really
1 minute.
good.
That's a
good
lot of
form
push-ups
too.
in 60 seconds.
Good form too. So yeah, he it's not surprising. He's jacked. He met his co-founder at the Google DeepMind gym flipping tires. So his fitness journey goes a while back, and I think he will remain at the top of the leaderboard for quite some time yet.
Jayden, we're getting real into the weeds of kind of the media life cycle. I kind of look at X as where influence is. If you are big on X, you have influence. If you're big on YouTube, you have reach. And they're not necessarily the same thing. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think it is pretty well known that, when you post stuff on X, you're going to get a bunch of engagement and it's going to happen quite quickly. Of course, get a bunch of impressions, and so all of those things. So people will see the thing very, very quickly. They will maybe tune in for parts, but it is very, 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 very rare that somebody will watch something all the way through an X, right? The platform is not geared for that. People, the platform incentivizes scrolling, and so watching the screen, right? It doesn't really make sense to do so on X, but you can get so many people to see the thing. Whereas, YouTube, like I mentioned, it's I would say it's valuable because it has that watch time, right? It's like people go there to watch stuff all the way through. I know even on my phone and my analyzing my own behavior when I watch YouTube, very, very easy for me to just pop out the screen, put it up in the top corner and continue to scroll X while I watch YouTube. It's like one of those things.
It's very healthy behavior.
Oh, it's totally fine.
I think even more so, like I look at X as where the conversation starts, where the ideas come to fruition, when they have that first little seed of an idea, and there's so many influential people on X, and from there then it starts to get distributed on YouTube, then on Instagram and TikTok, and then a few weeks later LinkedIn. And I really think that's how it is, and like what is the feature of X that makes it the draw for the intellectuals, for people who are actually conceiving of the ideas initially?
Yeah, so I'd say there's two different answers of that to that, depending on whether it's pre-Elon or post-Elon. So pre-Elon, there were sort of the I'm forgetting the word. There were the friend graphs, the I guess we can call them silos, right? So the algorithm, everybody's algorithm was much more siloed in that, you would see those of who you follow, and then you would see them interacting with stuff as well. And that would be the algorithm, right? So that's sort of how far the algorithm would go in terms of, like how only a couple of layers of separation from you and your followers. Whereas now it is very much more like a TikTok, Instagram Reel style algorithm in which, yeah, you're going to still see the people that you follow. You're going to see those accounts that the people you follow comment on, but you're also going to see many more viral posts just generally from what would be considered to be perhaps outside of your interest even, right? Because the algorithm is now, again, it's much more like TikTok, so it's predicting what you might like to see versus just going purely off of what your followers or who you follow are interacting with. trying to not stumble over my words while chaining together all of the different relationships in pre-Elon versus post Elon.
You hit all the important points.
Yeah, but post Elon, where I'm getting at here is post Elon. You have the ability to reach more people, right? You have the ability to reach more people that are outside of that initial friend graph versus just before. It worked a little bit differently, and I think that's actually why a lot of tech companies now, they have a mandate to really focus X, because they realize, the velocity of a post going viral, right? The eyeballs that I can get on X, it's much larger than what it used to be. And I can reach so many more people. I can reach so many more influential people that way as well.
Yeah. Well, it's these kinds of insights that make MOTS awesome to watch. And I'm going to be looking out for the Anthropic announcement that they've acquired MOTS. So I hope to see that soon. Jayden, as always, very fun to have you on. Really appreciate it. Find him at creatine_cycle and at MOTS_pod on X. Jayden, come back again.
Thank you so much. It's always a blast. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Jayden.
See you soon.
Cheers, guys.
All right. And that's the show. Want to thank our guests, Ben Pouladian, CEO, BEP Holdings, Wayne Nelms, co-founder and CTO of Ornn, Jayden Clark, founder and host of MOTS Podcast. Nick, thank you once again for co-hosting with me. We are now neighbors.
We're now neighbors.
Yeah.
By the way, you can't not talk to Jayden and immediately feel better. He's just a bundle of positive energy, and now I'm very happy and ready to take on the rest of the day.
Yeah, I totally agreed, and hopefully we get to have him back on soon again. Thank you all for watching. Go subscribe, go like this, follow us on Twitter at ForwardFuture, forwardfuture.ai for our incredible newsletter daily, and we will see you next week.